Hey, it's Buck at Bacon Trees. Thanks for stopping by. I wanted to do a little series of videos on some articles I wrote 18 years ago, and I'm going to call it What I Said Then and What I Think Now of What I Said, something like that. I'll figure out a better title, I'm sure. But we'll see what's changed in 18 years. I know equipment has changed. Some techniques have changed and improved, that type of stuff. Microphones have changed, sound systems, everything has changed in 18 years. But let's see how much has changed and how much has not changed, or how much that I wrote about in 2001 in this case, and how much of that is still valid today. Well, another thing that has changed is I actually need reading glasses if I'm going to read within a foot or so here. Okay, so the first article comes from Mix Magazine in this would be the second one I wrote, and this is November 2001. I still have the magazine. And this is called Club Sound Tips. Club Sound Tips. Now, let's see how much of this has changed. So what I wrote then and what I think now. 10 steps to a productive sound check. Sound checks can be very useful things and will change by the start of the show. Obvious posts sound check changes will include room filling up with people. That's true. Still true. Which will almost certainly change the room's acoustic character. So a lot of this stuff still holds up today. Step 1, after setting up the band as shown in the figure. Here's the figure. They did some nice artwork for me, and it's all like colorful, right? It's kind of a self-monitoring approach, where all the speakers are pointed inwards. Ideally, that's not always going to happen, of course. I asked the band to play a song with only the monitors on. I leave the front of house mix in the off position. If the band can hear themselves play and feel comfortable, then you're halfway there. That's still true today. Okay, so I still do the same thing. If I mix a band, I do it the same way. Listen for any element that is too loud on stage. Adjust the problem element so it will be controllable. For example, if you're miking the cymbals, they may need to be simply unmiked. If the stage is treated properly, then they won't be a huge problem. In a lot of cases, not every case, of course. Step number 3, that was step 2. Step 3, solo any instrument that sounds funny. I don't mean a clown horn, I mean something that sounds funny or off. That's not very funny. Okay, I'll move on. Bring its fader up in the front of house alone and listen to it carefully. Bring the fader back down and go to the stage to compare the actual sound with what you heard, and then adjust accordingly. Step 4, start a rough front of house mix by bringing up the vocals until they sound loud and clear. Add the rhythm section, add the guitars, keys, etc. until you come up with a nice balanced mix and you don't lose the vocals. That was step 4 and 5. Step 6, ask the band to stop playing. Perform a rhythm section check first by asking the drummer to play time. Once you're satisfied with the sound, ask the bass player to join in. Shape the rhythm section until it sounds good and balanced. Ask the other musicians one at a time to join in and see which instrument is causing a sound problem. Okay, so this step is if there is a sound problem. If there's no sound problem, move on to step 7. Fine-tune the mix with minor EQ adjustments. Keep that in mind. Keep in mind that your fader levels may have to be changed regularly throughout the show, so aim for approximate levels. That's called gain riding, and yeah, that's going to happen. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases, you're going to be gain riding. Okay, if you can't control some inputs, you can neither raise nor lower their levels in the mix. Then go back to step 6, which is ask the band to stop playing, perform a rhythm check, and try to find out the problem and fix it. Step 8, bring in the effects, but only if they're needed. If the band doesn't mention effects, then it's up to you, but don't add weird delays and stuff to somebody or reverbs. I tend not to add any noticeable reverb unless I ask the singer, do you like reverb on your voice? If the venue already has a lot of natural reverb, we don't always need reverb on the voice. I remember mixing shows where I didn't use any effects whatsoever, and it actually sounded really good because the room had a nice reverb to it. Okay, so then decide on the effects at that point. Right, talk to the band about it. Step 9, walk around the room and listen for overall balance. Also pay attention to the vocal dynamics and make mental notes of how the singer is using the microphone. Step 10, if possible, make a recording from the soundboard. And then maybe you could offer it, hey, I'll do a free recording, but you got to listen to me, right? So it's kind of a trade-off. If you don't want the stage sound to become uncontrollable. And I did make a video not too long ago about communicating with the band, which somebody really tore to shreds. That's a whole other discussion. But in here you can see warmer communications. I put this in and 2001, and I still mean it. You gotta be able to talk to the band and like be personable. Put your ego aside, and if it's a new band and they really don't know what they're doing, just help them out. Don't make fun of them. That's it. And then mixing the show, and there's a whole bunch of steps here about mixing the show, and I did that on a separate video. But anyway, here's one of the things that I might have changed since then. To clean up the vocal sounds, drop the low mids between 125 to 300 hertz. I actually changed that from 200 to 600 hertz now, because I found a little wider of a scoop in there, but no more than 6 dB at the lowest, the lowest point actually works. And that's where I started developing my D curve, starting in 1998 and then writing about it in 2001. To clean up the bass guitar, cut the lows a bit. Lower the bass amp volume on stage, or reduce the amount of low frequencies from the bass amp. Compress the bass signal if necessary. That really does help clean up a bass guitar. I still do that same thing today. To fix a flabby kick drum with a little too much boomy bass, roll off the low end, 125 to 150 hertz. Actually, I would roll off with a shelving filter below 100 hertz now. I do dip between 125 and 1. So I didn't write that actually. They wrote that for me. I meant dip. Just dip 125 to 150 hertz. Don't roll off. You can't roll off if you're using a graphic EQ or even a bandpass filter like a lower mid sweep. So I meant dip. They put roll off. So that was their wording, not mine. To fix a tinny guitar, aim the amp across the stage rather than into the audience. Yeah. And cut the high mids by a few dB and whatever, and just add a little more low frequency to it. So all these things that I wrote at that time, actually, I still agree with 90%. There's a couple of things in there which have changed, but most of it is still what I do. Anyway, that's part one. Thanks for watching. There's more to come.